I believe Amy Phelps is our next speaker. But Amy Phelps, for those that don't know Amy, she's joined us a few times in the past on this topic and some others as well. Amy's a computer scientist, conformity assessment advisor in the Standards Coordination Office at NIST. In that role, she's developed and executed strategies to coordinate, design, and implement conformity assessment activities conducted at numerous federal agencies, including Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, GSA, OSHA, FDA, Center for Radiological Devices and Health. In addition to that, she's a member of the USNC IEC, CAPCC, and the Council, as well as the IECE CB scheme, NFPA 790, 791 work group, and the IECEX committee. So very busy. Previously worked for the Information Technology Lab at NIST, managing the Health IT program, which included a portfolio of strategic standards based on programs advancing research in the area of health IT. Prior to joining NIST, she worked as a consultant focused in the area of health IT and the development of interoperability standards for healthcare systems. So Amy's experience is well aligned with a lot of the things we do in our conformity assessment lab members. So welcome, Amy, and look forward to hearing from you again. I'll turn things over to you. Let's see.
Okay. Today I'm just going to provide a brief update on where things stand with the FDA accreditation scheme for conformity assessment pilot program, or ASCA, and I believe I've spoken to this group before in the past. And before I begin, unfortunately, FDA sends their regrets. They're unavailable to attend with me this morning, so I apologize for that, and they apologize as well. So with that, I am going to roll on. So from just a quick overview perspective, I'm going to talk, remind the group about what ASCA is and why they're developing it, the scope of the pilot program, then give a little update on the program itself, what they've been working on and where they're going towards, and then talk a little bit about where they are right now with test laboratory applications, and then answer any questions that the group may have. So as a reminder, this is the ASCA program is a voluntary conformity assessment program, and this all started from amendments made to FDARA, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, as well as amendments made to the Medusa 4, which is the Medical Device User Amendments of 2017. And it's using as you can see here, the consensus standards in device development and review. It's leveraging the existing international conformity assessment system and infrastructure. And the overall goal, and we'll talk about this on the next couple of slides, is to improve the efficiency of the pre-market review process. So FDA has the confidence they need in the test results from ASCA accredited test laboratories. So why ASCA? Well, again, it's the end result that FDA is looking to achieve in this pilot is increased increased confidence in the device review information at the end of the day. And FDA intends to rely on the results from the ASCA accredited testing laboratories, and they don't intend to ask additional questions related to the conformance of the standard. They're not intending to question the validity of the methods within the scope of an ASCA accredited testing laboratory. And again, it's to increase the overall confidence of FDA in the methods and results that are being reported by these testing laboratories in medical device manufacturer pre-market submissions. So the scope of the ASCA pilot is twofold. There are two standard categories that are included. The first, as you can see here, are around basic safety and essential performance. And these, as you can see, are around 60601 family and 80601, as well as 61010-1. The other scope area included in the pilot program is around biocompatibility. These are the specific recognized consensus standards that FDA has selected to participate in the pilot program, as well as they have scoped it down to certain specific methods within each of these standards to narrow the scope from a biocompatibility perspective slightly in addition to just the overall standard. So it's a slightly different approach than the basic safety and essential performance. So current program update. Recently, there was a webinar on guidance documents for all stakeholders. I guess recent is a relative term these days, but it was back in September, October time period when the guidance documents were published. There are 3 guidance documents, and I have links in the resource page at the end of the presentation to the FDA website to access these guidance documents. There's an overall guidance document on the basics of the program, the general setup of the scheme, the different players, application processes, and then each scope area that I just discussed, one around basic safety and essential performance and the other on biocompatibility, have their own guidance documents. And as many of you are already aware, guidance documents are FDA's term for specifications. In October, there was training for accreditation bodies wishing to participate in the pilot program. There were also question and answer sessions held for testing laboratories wishing to participate in the pilot program. The list of ASPA recognized accreditation bodies, and these are recognized accreditation bodies according to FDA's pilot program, and that list was published in November, and it is available on the FDA website. In terms of upcoming activities, as I mentioned previously, right now, testing laboratories can apply to receive FDA ASPA accreditation. That is FDA's term of art. They are having an initial list that will be published of all applications received by February 9th. And after that initial list is published, and the goal is to publish an initial list by April 12th, the list of testing laboratories will be updated on a rolling basis as applications are received. So for testing laboratories to apply and receive their FDA ASPA accreditation, there's 2 steps. And the first step is testing laboratories need to get accredited from an ASPA recognized accreditation body to ISO IEC 17025 and the additional ASPA pilot program specifications as defined in the guidance document. This is separate from any other accreditation that a testing laboratory may have currently. So many laboratories are already accredited to 17025 for a specific scope, but the scope of accreditation needs to be specific to the FDA ASPA pilot program and include the specific recognized consensus standards and additions as defined by the pilot program. After the ASPA recognized AD accreditation, a testing laboratory can apply to FDA for ASPA accreditation, and testing laboratories can send their application to the email as seen on the screen and demonstrating that they meet the specifications in the guidance document. And what is included in an application is specified in the guidance document, and it is slightly different between the different scope areas. So biocompatibility has a little bit more information that they're looking for in their applications than basic safety and essential performance, just as a note. That initial timeline and window for applications was, as I mentioned, February 9th, and FDA has been noticing some of the quality of the applications that have been coming in, and wanted to kind of emphasize that when testing laboratories are applying for ASPA accreditation to the pilot program, testing laboratories need to be specific and use the FDA recognized consensus standards database for the specific version of the standard and methods in the ASPA scope. FDA does not recognize necessarily all additions of, for example, basic safety and essential performance. So testing laboratories need to ensure that they're looking at the correct version of the standard and method that is out in the recognized consensus standards database. In addition, it's important to understand if that recognized consensus standard has any additional limitations on the recognition. Some standards in the FDA recognized consensus standards database are referenced what FDA calls a standards information sheet with a particular standard or method, and this includes additional information pertaining to what FDA is looking for in terms of how that standard is utilized in the medical device. Here are some resources available for folks around the program guidance document. The first one is the overall guidance document on the scheme itself. The next one is on the basic safety and essential performance specifications. Then biocompatibility standard specific guidance document. There's a link to the FDA website that includes additional information. And then the recognized consensus standards database as well. And I'm happy to, that concludes the presentation. It was just a really quick update on the program and what was going on. I'll open it up for any questions or comments that the group may have.
Amy, how is it, do you have any data from FDA or the accreditation bodies in terms of the numbers of the laboratories?
I do, but FDA is not releasing that information at this point in time. Sorry.
All right, no problem. We've identified that in the past, as we went through this, that most of our labs that participate, especially in this section, are more on the safety side than the biocompatibility side. I didn't know if there was any specific feedback on applications that have been received, if there's any.
I can say, Dan, there's a lot more basic safety and essential performance labs. There's less than 100, but more than 25 that have applied to be part of the initial list.
I didn't know if there's any feedback on you mentioned the quality of the applications. Any additional information?
So most of the quality aspects have been, it's different. But from the basic safety and essential performance side, since as you mentioned, most of the labs here would be around that series, or that laboratories are not looking specifically at the FDA recognized consensus standards database. So when they're getting their accreditation, it's difficult to know if the recognized FDA version is the actual version that was on their scope of accreditation, as well as understanding the importance differences in the supplemental information sheets associated with the standards and methods.
I think it's a familiar challenge for a lot of us in terms of making sure we've all got the right versions of various different iterations and different recognized by different industries and different countries, and who's on this version and who's on that version, and we're all familiar with the challenge.
It can't be easy, and I know it's not necessarily easy trying to search through the FDA site and stuff as well. And they're working with their recognized accreditation bodies to ensure that they're looking at this consensus database as well to help with this process.
Amy, I wanted to just be clear that in order to submit an application, you already have to have your accreditation from your AB?
That is correct.
Okay, And back to the standardization, in between the third and the fourth edition of this, the 1-2, they actually pulled in some of the fourth edition into the third edition. So it wasn't all just which standard, it's which standard plus. So.
Yeah, no, I know there's a lot of nuances, and FDA is aware of it, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to handle a lot of this stuff. Yeah, they're well aware, so thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, you may not be able to provide this either, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have any idea how many manufacturers with their own testing capabilities are applying for the program versus independent laboratories?
Off the top of my head, I don't think there's that many. Maybe a handful. Not even. Not even.
Okay. I don't really have any perspective on what the status of that was previous to that, with how many OEMs were doing their own testing versus outsourcing it. But just curious.
Honestly, only one is coming to my mind right now. But again, there's a lot of information out there, right? So.
Sure. All right. I got one more question for Amy, but anybody else want to jump in first? I was just curious, Amy, if you had any other interesting projects that are taking off. It seems like you're always on some of the hot button types of things.
I don't necessarily want to stand the thunder from my boss, so
Oh, good. Yeah.
most of my time, honestly, Danny, and others is being spent right now with SBA, because they're in their really critical time of getting their accreditation bodies recognized, doing all of their training to the stakeholder groups, whether it's the accreditation body or the testing laboratories, and now helping with the review process of the testing laboratory application. So there's a lot going on. Just to let the group know too, there's some industry basics webinars that are being held. I think it's coming up in April. I think it might be April 13th. That date is ringing in my mind. Again, that's really just a broad sweep at it from an industry perspective. I think it's more focused on the manufacturer's side of the house, but it might be interesting for this group. Details are available on the FDA website. So.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions or comments for Amy? Well, thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate all the work on that. It sounds like that's enough for now. We'll give you a little breather before we see what your next interesting project is. But I know you came right into this off the conformity assessment guideline documents and the ABCs. So seems like you always have something interesting for our group going on.
I like to stay busy.
Great. Thank you again.
All right, thank you so much.